You know the story, right? We hear it literally all the time now. A kid sitting in their bedroom makes a quick beat, uploads it to the internet, and boom, overnight they're a global superstar. We're told the internet completely democratized music. The old, crusty gatekeepers have been destroyed, and absolutely anyone with a laptop and a dream can bypass the traditional industry machine to become famous. It's an incredibly inspiring idea. But is it actually true? Well, when you look past all those viral anecdotes and actually dig into the hard data of who stays on the charts, the reality of the modern music industry might completely subvert your expectations. To really understand this landscape, we have to talk about a brand new currency ruling the industry today: buzz. Think of digital buzz as this explosive, self-generating wave of consumer demand and word of mouth online. It spreads like wildfire. Back in the day, success meant steady record sales driven by radio play. Today, for independent artists, capturing lightning in a bottle through viral, short-term fame is the absolute prerequisite just to get noticed. But, as we're going to see, there is a massive, stark difference between generating a week of explosive buzz and actually building a sustainable career. Welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today. Our goal in this session is to uncover the absolute reality of major label dominance in the digital age. We're going to dive into some really fascinating comprehensive research from a master's thesis on the digital music market. Specifically, we're looking at how the big three labels, Universal, Sony, and Warner, are fighting back against the independent revolution.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with the internet disruption, move into the do-it-yourself revolution, see exactly how major labels adapted, dig into the data on singles versus albums, and finally uncover the secret to longevity.
Starting with Section 1, the internet disruption and the shift in power.
Historically, the big three labels operated this massive oligopoly based on vertical integration. Basically, they controlled the whole shebang, from the incredibly expensive recording studios down to the physical distribution networks delivering CDs to retail stores, the physical record store clerk, and the radio DJ. They were the ultimate gatekeepers. But the digital era triggered a seismic shift called re-intermediation. All that really means is that the intermediaries simply changed. Instead of physical supply chains, we got digital platforms. The new gatekeepers became Spotify playlists and YouTube algorithms. And because distributing a digital MP3 cost practically nothing compared to shipping heavy plastic CDs across the country, the major labels briefly lost their incredible comparative advantage.
And that brings us to Section 2, the do-it-yourself revolution and the rise of the independent artist. Because distribution became virtually free, aspiring musicians suddenly realized they could bypass the majors entirely. But this newfound freedom, it comes with a pretty exhausting reality. Without the deep pockets and specialized massive departments of a major label, independent artists essentially have to become full-time entrepreneurs. They aren't just making music anymore. They're their own manager, marketer, distributor, and a full-time social media influencer. With extremely scarce financial resources, they're forced to hustle tirelessly just to build direct relationships with fans, desperately hoping to trigger that explosive online buzz we talked about earlier.
And the hard data perfectly captures how vital this DIY hustle actually is. Get this, a startling 71.36% of the track top chart artists started their YouTube channel up to 2 entire years before their first official iTunes release. That is wild. It proves that today artists are doing the exhausting groundwork themselves. They're filming freestyles, creating vlogs, and building their audience completely organically before they even attempt to put out a commercially recorded end product. The independent artists are doing all the heavy lifting to prove their market value first.
Which naturally leads us to Section 3, how major labels adapted and reclaimed the market.
Now, what's really interesting here is exactly how the major labels reacted, because they didn't just accept defeat, they totally changed the rules of the game. Rather than risking millions of dollars trying to develop unknown talent from scratch, their artist and repertoire departments completely pivoted. They started poaching artists who had already gone viral using that exact DIY method we just discussed. Once they find that proven talent, they lock them in with a new type of contract called a 360 deal, all while leveraging their immense corporate weight to secure exclusive streaming partnerships.
Let's look a little closer at that contract. The 360 deal is the major label's new ultimate weapon. Because traditional digital sales revenues dropped, labels adapted by demanding a cut of literally everything an artist does. Merchandise, touring, brand deals, you name it, they want a slice. But in exchange, the label provides something an independent artist simply cannot fund themselves: substantial, unprecedented upfront capital and real long-term security. They offer state-of-the-art marketing campaigns and global profile building that takes a flash-in-the-pan viral sensation and turns them into a true household name.
Moving right along to Section 4, the data comparing singles versus albums. It's time to look at the hard numbers.
To prove this theory, we're going to look at a fascinating case study of the French Spotify Top 200 charts between 2017 and 2018. Now, you might be wondering why this specific dataset. Well, because it acts as an incredible microcosm of global streaming habits. Over 2 years, tracking nearly 14,000 chart ranks, this data gives us a deeply objective look at what actually survives on streaming platforms today. It's heavily dominated by hip-hop and rap at roughly 64%, which perfectly reflects the current global consumer demand for fast-moving, digitally native genres.
So, the crucial point is revealed when researchers ran the numbers using an OLS regression analysis. When we look at single tracks, independent DIY artists can absolutely win the short-term battle. Releasing a single is relatively cheap, and independent artists use viral marketing brilliantly to push their singles high up the charts. The data actually shows no statistically significant advantage for major labels when it comes to singles. But when we look at albums, the story completely flips. Independent artists struggle to fund the heavy production and massive promotional costs of a full album rollout. For albums, having a major label provides a profound, massive positive impact. The indies can win the skirmish of the single for sure, but the major labels decisively win the war of the album.
And that brings us perfectly to our final section, the secret to longevity.
To truly understand longevity in this industry, the researchers applied what's known as an accelerated failure time, or AFT model. Think of this essentially as a survival model used to measure exactly how long something lasts before it dies, which in this case means dropping off the Spotify Top 200 chart. The AFT model acts as the ultimate truth. It definitively proves that tracks signed to major labels possess a statistically longer survival time. The backing of a major label essentially provides this incredible protective effect that decelerates an album's death time on the charts. Why? Because majors have totally unmatched resources to sustain huge marketing campaigns, secure premium playlist placements, and ensure a track doesn't just spike and fade, but actually stays culturally relevant for weeks or even months.
And this brilliantly illustrates that exact survival power. When we look at market dominance in these tracked hits, Universal commands a staggering 45.1% of the market. Independents hold a very impressive 33.7%, which definitely proves the DIY route is still highly viable, followed by Warner at 16.9% and Sony at 4.2%. Universal secures this incredible grip not just through sheer marketing spend, but through exclusive distribution platforms like Vivo, which they actually co-own with Google, and by negotiating prime banner placements directly with streaming giants like Spotify. They've successfully and quite brilliantly inserted themselves right back into the digital supply chain.
Which leaves us with this final, truly vital question. The digital revolution absolutely changed the rules of the game forever. It allowed independent artists to build their own buzz and prove their worth without ever asking for permission. But as the data clearly shows, while that DIY buzz might get your single through the door, funding a full album and surviving the brutal, fast-paced churn of the modern charts requires immense, sustained capital. The internet can make you famous for a week, but who will you trust to keep you famous for a decade? Think about that the next time you see a fiercely independent artist suddenly sign a major record deal. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.